Hello, my name is Simon Watts. I'm a biologist and science presenter and, among other things, a comedian. I run the Ugly Animal Preservation Society, which is comedy with a conservation twist. We tour the country and world, and everywhere we go we get people to elect their own ugly animal mascot, a kind of anti-panda. Everybody knows the snow leopard, everybody knows the cheetah, everybody knows all these beautiful, charismatic megafauna. More of us should know the blobfish and animals like that. They need our help too. Anyway, like a lot of comics in lockdown, I'm writing a lot of new material and I'm going to try out a bit on you. It is so hot off the presses, I'm going to have to read it out. But let me know what you think. I think this will eventually end up in a kind of ugly animal bird special that we'll do at some stage. Maybe I should just throw all of it away. Here goes. If you were to describe the birds in a sentence, you'd probably call them those warm-blooded things that fly. Birds are in many ways like nature's bats. Many ducks and geese are so cocky about their excellent flying capabilities that they fly in formation, flicking the V's at all the losers on the ground far below them. Even at those that fly in a straight line are birds flicking the bird at those far below. But there are a whole ton of birds which have evolved to be flightless. Forgetting how to fly might seem kind of careless, but they've done it more times than I've lost my phone charger. And yes, I have checked the cabinet by the bed. And yes, I'm not using my wife's phone charger. And yes, I've lost that too. But all the same, lots of things have given up flying. Some ducks, for instance, prefer to paddle. The penguins gave it up in return for fishing and formal attire. And of course there's the kiwi, which can't fly because it's a fruit. And then the dodo, which was we think for a long time we thought was a vulture or a rail or some kind of fun-size ostrich or something. But no, it's a pigeon that landed in Mauritius, sat down, grew thick and evolutionarily complacent, and then died within a century of meeting mankind. Because it knew no fear. It would run up to predators and go, "Oh, will you be my friend?" before they bit its face off. Flying has a ton of advantages. It can keep you away from pesky predators and allows you a kind of an aerial overview of things, if only we'd a term for that. But flying can be expensive, as anyone who's flown BA will know. Any extra weight can cost you, as anyone who's flown Ryanair will know. And flying can take you to new and unexpected places, as anyone who's flown to London and ended up in Luton will know. Flying allowed birds to get to places where they could forget how to fly. They'd arrive in new locations, often islands where there was no mammalian predators, and before you knew it, they were relaxed. They were putting on weight, and they were breeding very irresponsibly and in unsafe ways. It's just like Ibiza. But there's one set of birds that took the idea of becoming flightless and really ran with it, by which I mean they're amazing runners. The ratites, the ostrich, and their close kin. Emus, for instance, can run up to 30 miles an hour, which makes you wonder exactly how Rod Hull caught one, never mind got his hand up there. Because they can be vicious. Emus have arguably got the most powerful legs on the planet. When Chung Lee developed the spinning bird kick, this is what she had in mind. Now they'll chase down clouds, they'll run after rain looking for water, which reminds me a lot about my childhood holidays, when, to get away from the cold and damp of rural Ireland, we would go on holiday in Scotland. And we've got proof of the emu's tenacity as well. Picture the scene, right? World War I had just happened, it was pretty awful. At that stage, no one thought they'd commission a sequel. So 5,000 Aussie veterans returned home to Australia. They were given land out west to farm. The west was barren, but it's still a better retirement package than most of us freelancers can expect. My retirement plans are best summed up with the words James Dean. With the promise of subsidies from the government, the new farmers began growing the wheat. But life was hard. There was drought, and then the Great Depression, which I always think is a somewhat ironic name for a depression. The outback was tough. Neighbours hadn't even been invented yet, so there was no light relief. Not even Home Away, which I personally think of as being like the kind of Aussie soap opera methadone to the neighbours' skag. And then, in 1932, an invasion, peering over the crest of a hill like in a Zulu, but with less racist overtones. No, I can't say that, can I? So that's wrong. Fewer racist overtones. Were 20,000 emu. They nom-nommed all the wheat in sight and trashed the fences, allowing the reserve battalion of rabbits to come in. What were these poor farmers to do? Well, they went to Canberra looking for a politician, because they've got a long history of not messing up everything entirely. Did they go to the Minister of Agriculture? No. The Department of Environment, maybe? Nope. They spoke to George Pearce, the Minister of Defence. They said that they needed arms to defend their crops from these barbarian birds. They wanted machine guns. Now, of course, they couldn't just give machine guns to anyone, like this is not America after all, no. So George sent orders to Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery 7th Field Regiment. I had to read that bit, definitely. And it was dispatched with Lewis machine guns, 10,000 rounds of ammunition, and 2 soldiers to operate them. On the 2nd of November, battle was met. They said, "Hello, battle. and the soldiers sprayed the birds with hundreds of rounds. It was a massacre. They killed 9 emu. They decided that a new strategy was needed. They bolted the gun to the roof of the truck. They planned to do some kind of drive-by shooting. They even put on like some proper gangster rap to go with it. And the birds outran them. One emu was shot 6 times before it ran off out of range, miffed but fine. Meredith said, I'm going to do an accent now, each mob has its leader who keeps watch while his fellows busy themselves with the wheat. At the first suspicion, he gives the signal and dozens of heads stretch out of the crop. A few birds will take fright, starting a headlong stampede for the scrub. The leader will always remain until his followers have reached safety. The press had a field day of it, and it became known as the Great Emu War, and Australia had lost. In spite of all this, even in Australia's coat of arms, they have put an emu, because presumably barbecues and Vegemite are not allowed. Emus are not actually Australia's most dangerous bird, though. For that, you need the cassowary. You should always be wary of a cassowary. Cassowaries are kind of like a burlesque ostrich. They've sort of got like a jaunty hat-like cast. And in its foot, it has a switchblade. They obviously looked at the other big birds and said, that's not a claw, this is a claw. It really is the most Australian thing, isn't it? Saying, oh, why, hello, evolution. Now, well, before you come in, just take off your shoes and any chance you could just make your birds lethal, you know, just so they fit in with everything else. And if you could please dress it up like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Thank you. For a documentary a couple of years ago I once described cassowaries as being like feathered velociraptors. But we now know that velociraptors had feathers. So that's that analogy ruined. Thanks, science. But velociraptors were only actually about the size of a chicken anyway, so we all know that there's an alternative universe out there where KFC is really dangerous. Well, more dangerous. That's the first time I've said most of that out loud. I hope it was vaguely tolerable. Let me know. And do check out the Ugly Animal Preservation Society. We'll be doing plenty more of these things.